Alright, so today we're going to talk about 2.1 rational number notes that we'll do. Alright, so starting off, we're going to talk about a rational number. So last chapter was about integers. Integers was focused on the numbers like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, no decimals, no fractions, nothing like that, okay? But rational numbers include those fractions and everything. So it goes, integers are part of the rational numbers, but rational numbers are not always integers. So like 3/5 is a rational number, but it technically is not an integer because it is a fraction. So a rational number, think of ratio. If you can write it as a ratio, like 3/5 or 5/7. Okay? All right. So first it says write the rational numbers at decimals. So to start off, we're going to look at number 1. So to make this a decimal, what you're going to do is there's two different ways. So one way I can think of it is 10 times what gets me to 100? That's correct, 10 times 10, right? Okay, so if I do that on the bottom, I have to do that on the top, 9 times 10. Okay, so that would be 90, right? I still have that negative there. Okay, so in order to make this you count how many zeros? So I have 1, 2 zeros, right? So I have 90. I have to move it over 2. 1, 2. And so it would be a negative 0.90. That would be your decimal if you were trying to make a decimal. Another way, this doesn't always work out the best just because sometimes 10 or you might have a 33. 33 does not go to 100 very easily. So if you have a problem like that, what you're going to do, what will always work no matter what, is you're going to take the numerator and divide it by the denominator. So numerator is 9. So I put 9 in the box and then I divide it by 10. And 10 goes into 9 0 times. Oh, I have to add a decimal, add a 0, add a decimal. Okay, and then 10 goes into, so that goes in there, 0 times, so I get 9. Drop that 0. 10 goes into 90, 9 times, and that's 90. And that would be 0 left over. So then I have negative 0.9. You should have a 0 when you are changing a number into a decimal. Unless it is repeating decimal, you should have a 0 as your remainder when you divide. Alright, moving on. So when you have this, there's two ways of going about this. We know 3 doesn't go into 100 really at all, unless you times it by like a point something. So what we're going to do is, the first step is, you have two options. If you can understand that negative 4 is a whole number, so technically you can pull that out and keep it out, that is awesome. If not, we can make this improper. So we can take 4 times 3, which would be 12, plus 2, which is 14/3. So this is technically negative 14/3. And then we do what we did in number 1. We take the top, which is 14, we divide it by the bottom. So if 3 goes into 14, how many times? 4 times. So you get 12 minus, you get 2. Oh, we have a remainder, so I'm going to add a decimal, add a 0. Drop that 0 down. 3 goes into 20. When I add a decimal here, I have to add a decimal here too. Just remember that. 3 goes into 20 6 times, right? And that would be 18. We subtract it, we get 2, add a 0, drop that 0. But you see that this 2 0 is going to repeat on and on and on and on, right? So if I do it again, I'd get, okay, 6, right? And then I'd minus 18 and I get that 2 again. This is called a repeating decimal. When it keeps going the same number over and over and over, you're never going to get, it's going to keep going 0.666666 forever, okay? But we have a shortcut. So if you have a repeating decimal, what you do is where it starts repeating, and if you repeat, you put a line over what's repeating. So that 6 is what's repeating. It's 4.66666. So my answer would be 4.6, but do not forget, this is negative here, so I have to keep that negative. Okay? So it's negative 4.6 repeating. Alright, so if we do it the same way, we do 16 times 1 plus 7. So 16 times 1 is 16. 16 plus 7 is equal to 23 over 16. So we take 23 in the middle, 16 on the outside. 16 goes into 23 one time. Subtract that, we have 4, 5, 6, 7 remainder. Oh, we have a remainder, so I have to add a decimal, add a 0, drop that 0. Remember, when you add a decimal there, you have to add a decimal up. 16 goes into 70 4 times. 4 times 16 is 64. We minus that, we end up with 6. Oh, we still have a remainder. We drop down that 0. 16 goes into 60 3 times. Okay? So we have, sorry, let me move it down now. So we have 48. When we minus 48, we get 12 remainder. We add another 0, drop that 0 down. 120, so 120. How many 16s go into that? 7. Okay, so I have a 7 now. Okay, see, and I keep on going because 70, 60, 120, they all don't repeat each other. So 16 times 7 is 112, so you get 112 here. Subtract it, you get 8. I have 0, 80. 16 goes into 80 5 times, and you end up with 80 minus 8. You have a 0, you got to the end, so your answer would be 1.4375. Make sure there's no negative sign, so my answer is just 1 and 4375. Okay? Alright, so now the next step. It says write the decimal of the fraction or a mixed number in simplest form. So now we went from fraction to decimal. Now we're going to go decimal to fraction. So when you have something like this, you see how many numbers are behind the decimal. So I have 1, 2 numbers, okay? So I'm going to put those 2 numbers on top. And then since I have 2 numbers, I have to add 2 zeros. Okay, so how many numbers behind the decimals is how many zeros you have to add on the denominator, okay? So my answer is negative 84 over 100, but we are not done because that is not simplest form. What goes into 84 and into 100? 2, because they are both even. So 84 divided by 2 is 42 over 50. Oh, we can still get another 2 out of there, so it's divided by 2. 42 divided by 2 is 21. 50 divided by 2 is 25. And we still have that negative, and that it will be our final answer, okay? So make sure you get everything that is out that we can get out, okay? You do not leave it like this. You have to make sure that you simplify it all the way, okay? All right, so we have 5.22. How many numbers are behind the decimal? 1, 2, okay? So we're going to do that 5, and we're going to keep that out front, okay? Because it is a whole number. It's not behind the decimal. That will not go in the fraction, okay? So then we get that 22, and you have 2 numbers behind it. We have 2 zeros, okay? So I'm going to ignore the 5 for now, and I'm just going to focus on my fraction. Does anything go into 22 and 100? Yes, 2 does. They're even. So 22 divided by 2 is 11. 100 divided by 2 is 50. So I still have a 5 and 11 50ths. And that is my answer. 11 50ths does not go any lower. Make sure there is no negative. There isn't, so I don't have to add that. That is your answer. Alright, moving on. So now we have that negative 1. I'm going to keep that out front. I have 7, 1, 6, right? So then I'm going to put 716 on top, and I'm going to put 1 and add 3 zeros this time because there's 3 numbers. Okay, I'm going to ignore this negative 1 and just bring it down because I know it's still going to be there at the end, but I don't want to play with that right now. So what goes in 716 and 100,000? Right away you should know that 2 does just because it is even. So 716 divided by 2 is 358. So I'm going to do 358. And 1,000 divided by 2 is 500. Again, it should divide by 2. 358 divided by 2 is 179. Over 500 divided by 2 is just 250. Okay, this is where it gets a little trickier. Now you need to know, okay, I need to know my math, okay? So 2, no, 9's not even. 3, okay, let's add our places together. So 1 plus 7 plus 9, which would get me 17. 17 is not divisible by 3. So in order to figure out if it's divisible by 3, you can add all your numbers together and then see if it is divisible by 3. So 1 plus 7 plus 9 for 179. Okay, 4, no, 5, And if you keep on going, you should figure out that 179 is prime. There's nothing that's going to go into it. So my answer is negative 1 and 179 over 250. There is your answer. Okay. Alright, moving on. So order the numbers from least to greatest. So we first need to get the numbers all in decimals or all in fractions. I recommend getting them all in decimals. The reason is if you get them in fractions, there's an extra step. If you get them in fractions, you have to get a common denominator also. So like if I look at this and this, you can't compare 1/5 and 1/2. You would have to get them both to like something over 10. Okay, so what I recommend, I'm going to show you guys, is just go ahead and make them all decimals. So if I make 1/5 a decimal, I can do 5 times what gets me 100. 5 times 20, 1 times what, so 5 times 20 gives you 100, so 1 times 20 would give you 100, so I have 20 over 100. So I move my decimal over 2, 1, 2, so 1/5 is just 0.2. If you don't like that method, you can take the numerator, divide it by the denominator, right? Divided by the denominator, 5 goes in 0 times, add a decimal, add a decimal, add a 0. 5 goes into 10, 2. You get 0.2. Okay, so then I have that. Then I have 0.1, which is already a decimal. 1/2, we should know. You should know that off the top of your head. But if you don't, you can go ahead and divide 1 by 2. 1/2 is 0.5. And then negative 0.25 and 0.3. Okay, this is a little more difficult. So first of all, you look at your negatives. And how you look at your negatives. The bigger number, or the smaller number, is the farthest away from 0. So if you were looking at a number line, here's 0, okay? Here's 1, right? So negative 0.5, we'd know would be somewhere in the middle, right? Negative 0.25 would be somewhere here. So if I was using a number line, this would become negative 0.5. This would be negative 0.25. So if I'm going least to greatest, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write negative 0.5 goes all the way over. So I'm going to start here, negative 0.5, then negative 0.25 here, comma. Then I go to look at my positive values. So now if I'm looking at my positive values, 0.2, 0.3, or 0.1. Okay, so this is 1, right? So we want to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? And so 0.1 would be closest to 0 because we look at the first value, and the smallest one is 1, right? So 10th place is 1. So my next number would be 0.1, and then my next number would be 0.2, and my next number is 0.3. Okay, you are not done there though, because you need to change them back to the original value. So negative 0.5. If I look at negative 0.5 here, it goes to negative 1/2. So now if I need to change this back, this becomes negative 1/2, right? I'm going to write it in red, make it a little. So negative 1/2, okay? Negative 0.25, if I go here, it was right here, so is the second one in. Oh, I get to keep it as negative 0.25. Okay, moving on, right here. So then my next one would be 0.1. 0.1 is the second one in. It stays the same, 0.1. Then we go back, 0.2, 0.2. 0.2 is actually written as 1/5. So we write as 1/5. And 0.3 was written as 0.3. So my answer is in the red. So I have negative 1/2, negative 0.25, 0.5 or 0.1, 1/5, and then 0.3. This would be my answer at the end. Okay. Moving on to number 8. Okay. So if I move on to number 8, we're going to have to get all of them the same. So I'm going to go decimals again. So negative 1.6 stays the same. 5/2. So if I take 5 divided by 2, I'd get 2 minus, so that would be 4. 1, add a 0, add a decimal, drop that 1 down. 2 goes into 5 10 times, so I get 2.5 for that one. Then we have to do 7 over 8, so 7 divided by 8. 8 goes into 7 0 times, add a decimal, add a decimal, add a 0. 8 goes into 70. How many times? 8 times 8 is 64 minus, we get 6, add another 0, drop it down, 68 goes into 60, 7 times, that'd be 56, get 4, 8 goes into 40 because you add a 0, 5 times. So this would be 0.875. And remember, that has a negative, so we have to put negative 0.875. So we're ready a fraction, so 0.9. And last but not least, 6 divided by 5. So I put that 6 in the inside, the 5 on the outside. 5 goes to 6 one time, we subtract it. Oh, there's a remainder, so I have to add a decimal, add a 0, drop that 0 down. 5 goes into 10 2 times, so 1.2. Alright, now we just have to decide, so negatives go first. Okay, so there's 3 negatives right now, so we have negative 1.6, negative 1.2, and negative 0.875. Negative 1.6 is the farthest away from 0, so negative 1.6 goes first. Then it's between negative 0.875 and negative 1.2. If you need to look at a number line, you can to visualize it. But negative 1.2 is between 1 and 2, while 0.875 is between 0 and 1. So it should be in this order. Then we move on, and we get the last two, so 0.9 has to be little than 2.5 and 2.5. Okay, now we have to go back and say negative 1.6 was written as negative 1.6. We're good. Negative 1.2, oh, nope, it was written as negative 6/5, so I need to change that. So this becomes 6/5. Okay, then we got to go here, negative 0.875. Nope, that was written as negative 7/8, so I need to change that to negative 7/8. 7/8, and then we keep going, 0.9. 0.9 was written as 0.9. 2.5. 2.5 was written as 5/2, so I need to change that one to 5/2. Alright, let's go ahead and have you go ahead and try number 9, and I will, so pause the video, try number 9, and then I will tell you the answer for number 9. Alright, so if you did this right, you should have gotten negative 3.3 repeating here. You should have gotten negative 0.6 repeating here. And then 5/9 you should have went ahead and gotten 0.5 repeating here. Okay, so now this one's a little trickier, but we should know negative 3.3 is going to be the smallest, so this becomes negative 10/3 will come first. Okay, so we did that one. Then next, negative 0.6 is not next. Negative 1.3 would come next, 1.3, because it's farther away from 0. Then we go negative 0.666 repeating, which would be negative 2/3. Okay, then we look at these two. The thing I want to just talk about real quick is 0.5, 0.5555, right? Because that 0.5 is repeating that 5. We look at the first value, they are the same, right? But then if we go to the second value, if there's nothing there, it's automatically a 0. So is 0 or 5 bigger? 5, and we're talking about positive numbers, so this is going to be your bigger number because it has more, it has the same in the tens place, but the hundredths place has more, okay? So my 5/9 is going to be bigger, so I'm going to write 0.5, and then 5/9. That is the answer to that problem. Okay, let's do a word problem, and then we will get out of here. The table shows the position of each runner relative to when the first place finisher crossed the finish line. Who finished in second place? Who finished in 5th place? So let's go ahead and just put them all in the same decimal form. So 5 divided by 4, if you do that, you would get negative 1.25. Negative 14 divided by 25, so 25 goes into 100 4 times, so that becomes 100. 14 times 4 would get you 56, so then you move the decimal over twice, and it becomes 0.56, and that's a negative. And then 13 divided by 8, which gives you a negative 1.625. Okay, so this is each runner relative to when the first place finisher crossed the line. So the smallest number is the one that's going to end up being second place, because the first place just went, and then these are how much behind they are from the first place. So the smallest number, A, can't be because it has a -1. That would be farther away from 0. B, no, -1 also. C, -1. D, oops, 0.48. That could be. So this could be a first place. D could be first, maybe. Okay. Oh, 0.56. So this could be first also. Nope, that's a -1.625. That's farther away. Okay, so it's between these two, and -0.48 is closer to 0. So D is your second place. Your second place winner. Okay, so this goes second. Okay, if we go third, it has to be the smallest, closest to 0. So this has to be third. And then we go the -1 point somethings. Okay, so -1 point, the smallest number, 2 is bigger than 0. So it can't be the A or B. C is smaller than, and then if we look at F, 6 is bigger than 0. So this has to be your fourth place. And then we go to the 1.25, the 2's, right? Because 6 is too big, so F is going to be last place. We should know that because this 6 right here is bigger. So go place value by place value. So if I'm looking at this one versus this one, and I'm trying to see which one's closer to 0, which one's closer to the first place. So 1's are the same, 2's are the same, but this is a 5, this is a 6, and when we're in negatives, the smaller number is the closer to 0. So B would be your 5th place winner. So B, 5th place. Alright, so that is notes for 2.1, rational numbers. Thank you.